Dear students, good morning. This is the class for May the 4th, 2020, and Asia e Africa 1. Today, I'd like to start. I have to tell you something about the exams, and as soon as I have the official document, I'm going to prepare a separate video with the whole procedure, step by step, with what you have to do to book your exam, the documents that you have to have, but I can already anticipate, I can already tell you that, number one, you need an Unior email address, and if you don't have that already, I will give you the links and show you what you have to do to get one. But there's plenty of time, so don't worry. Just get things done in advance so that you can do things in a calm way, let's say. What else? Yes, it's going to be an oral exam, of course, and it's going to be made up of two parts. There's an oral part with, a language part, okay, what you've been doing with your mother tongue teachers. And you're just going to do it with me, though, okay? They are going to give me the exercises, and we will do them together. And then there's a second part that is about linguistics, and so that's the part that you have to do with me. As for this linguistics part, I can already tell you, and then I'll explain it in this other video that I'll prepare as soon as possible, as soon as they give me the document, is that I told you that we're going to have some general questions, okay? Well, I don't know. What is Pidgin? What is a Pidgin language? What is a Creole language? Just to give you an example. And then I want you to focus on 3 different varieties of English that we've studied. You know, we did all that very difficult part where there were all the descriptions of all the different types of varieties, all the different varieties of English. Well, don't panic, because I'm not going to ask you a grocery store list. I just want you to focus on 3 different varieties, and then I'll ask you some questions about that. Now, let me say this in Italian so that it's 100% clear. A breve posterò un video, non appena avremo ultimato il documento ufficiale, che è comune a tutti gli esami di lingua inglese. Per tutti gli anni, per tutti i corsi, per tutte le ripartizioni, quindi tutti i gruppi di divisione in cognomi. E vi guiderò passo passo attraverso tutto quello che dovete fare per prenotare l'esame, quali sono i documenti che dovete preparare, di cui abbiamo bisogno, la carta d'identità alla fine, il libretto e così via. E poi niente, vi darò qualche dettaglio in più sulla modalità di esame. Come vi ho già detto in altri video, è un esame esclusivamente orale. Le date usciranno a breve, le abbiamo tutto il gruppo lingua, il gruppo di lingua inglese le ha proposte, adesso il polo deve vedere se ci sono delle incongruenze, se ci sono dei problemi, dopodiché saranno postati. Vi stavo dicendo, vi farò questo video a parte e quindi andrò nel dettaglio lì, ma posso già anticiparvi che avrete bisogno innanzitutto di un indirizzo Unior, che molto probabilmente per tutti coloro che già seguono dei corsi su Teams, che è la piattaforma che utilizzerete per l'esame, già avete una mail di tipo Unior. Se no, comunque vi farò vedere che cosa bisogna fare per richiederla. E niente, poi sì, i documenti da postare, vi darò dettagli anche su questo. Sono diventata ripetitiva, non mi ricordo, penso di non aver parlato della parte dell'esame in sé. Comunque sarà fatto esclusivamente con me, avrete una parte di lingua che state preparando già con i vostri lettori, e la parte di linguistica con me. Vi chiederò delle domande generiche, ok? Ci sono dei concetti che abbiamo affrontato durante il corso che che dovete sapere. Se io vi chiedo che cos'è un pigeon, lo dovete sapere, insomma, queste nozioni di tipo generico, generale. Invece, vi ricordate quella parte molto difficile, e concordo con voi, dove vi ho dato le descrizioni di tutte le caratteristiche delle varietà dell'inglese. Ovviamente io non sarò lì a chiedervi la lista della spesa, voglio che voi vi concentriate su 3 differenti varietà di inglese, ve le studiate bene e poi parleremo di questo. Potete anche essere creativi, come vi dicevo qualche lezione fa. Se vi appassiona un tipo di inglese, oltre a sapere le sue caratteristiche, magari dite: professoressa, io ho trovato questa canzone, mi è piaciuta, l'analizzo, la voglio analizzare. Ok. Quindi vi lascio campo libero su questo, nel senso che sono io che gestisco l'esame, quello che vi chiederò, però fate in modo che possa essere un esame che vi appassioni, insomma, che vi apra un po' gli occhi su alcune cose. E niente, quindi troverete questo video questo video separato, perché lo voglio preparare bene, in modo che si veda. Lo posterò sia sul Moodle, cioè lo metterò ovviamente su YouTube, sul Moodle e sulla pagina personale. Ovviamente se avete domande lo sapete, sono sempre qua. Purtroppo o per fortuna sono incollata al computer, quindi basta scrivere una mail o un commento e vi rispondo. Quindi, giusto per ribadirlo, si sanno le date d'esame, le abbiamo proposte e il Polo le deve accettare, e usciranno a breve. So, with that said, I think we can move on. And I just want to quickly review what we did last week. Remember that we're talking about the differences between pigeons and creoles. And we talked about the characteristics of these two phenomena. And so we said that generally speaking, there are few inflections. Okay, so there's no gender number usually, at least usually. We talked about how negation is created in pigeon and in English-based pigeons and French-based pigeons. Obviously, there's no for English and pas for French without the S. And a simplified clause structure. Okay, you're not going to find relative clauses in a pigeon. Once there's the passage from a pigeon to a creole, some other phenomena take place. Obviously, people start speaking faster. This means that there's going to be lots of assimilation. We said that there's the change. This means that sounds change and they become closer. They sound like the following sounds. And we looked at the case of talk piscine with man belong me, my husband. That becomes man belong me, where the M is influenced by, well, the N becomes an M because it's influenced by how you pronounce a B. Okay? If you haven't done general linguistics, if you haven't taken the general linguistics course yet, that's fine. It's okay. You can just describe it the way I did. But just remember that both your lips are involved in the pronunciation of N and B. What else? Okay, there's an expansion of vocabulary, of course. And what else? And a sort of tense system. Okay, so things become a little more complicated. This because Creole has different social functions. It's not only a matter of quick interaction with somebody who speaks another language, but it also starts to be used in literature, in education, in religion. And we looked at the Tocqueville versions of some texts, some excerpts. And that was the end of it. Now, for today, we're going to start point B, B.6, and we're going to look at the potential features of ELF, English as a lingua franca. I think no, I did this? No. Okay, yeah, I introduced it because I see that then I put the links. So we looked at some lexicogrammatical features of English as a lingua franca. And it all deals with simplification, okay? So dropping the third person singular for S. There's a confusion between when to use who and when to use which, or when to use who and when to use that. And an omission of articles in general. A usage of incorrect or tag questions. Using prepositions in a random way. And using verbs that are overusing verbs that, some common English verbs like do, have, make, put, and take. You have to think of English used as a lingua franca. As a language that is simplified because it has an aim, the aim of communication among people who do not speak English as their first language, okay? So this involves trying to make things as easy as possible. Just like in the past, the Old English present tense verb endings, had different endings, okay, just like Italian, that you have an o, I, a, iamo, iete, ate, and o, and ano, The same thing was with English, but over the centuries, they just got simplified. And today, we have just two endings. You either have a S or you don't. So it's natural to expect that this process will continue. And when English is used as a lingua franca, it's quite natural, and it's quite natural to drop the S, okay, to see this dropping of the S very often. And so we expect that a zero inflection, so no adding no NS at all, is going to become the standard. But, and this is what happens with verbs, but remember all those cases where you have to mark the plural. Well, you add an S to mark the plural form in English, okay? And remember about all those cases where you must not add an S. Okay? Just like informations or advices. There was this old professor of mine, that made me, when I attended university, made us notice that when you get to the port in Ischia, you can see lots of signs with informations. At least this is what happened when I attended university. I hope it's not the same now. But anyway, informations, advices, what's going on there? Well, more or less, lots of people, not everybody, but lots of people know that you indicate something plural in English by adding an S. And so what people are doing in that case, and in English used as a lingua franca, is just following the normal pattern. And that's why you find informations. Because ambiguity is more likely to happen if you remove phonological information from it rather than adding it. If I write information, okay, in the mind of somebody who is using English as a lingua franca, or at least does not speak English as his first language. Sorry, I got lost in track. What was I saying there? Okay. So people using English as a lingua franca would expect that S there. Okay. If they don't put it, it could become quite ambiguous for them. Okay. So present tense, English as a lingua franca tends to avoid the S. When it's marking number, it tries to always put it when it's indicating a plural. Now, let's go down to this comment on the difference between native and non-native speakers of English. You have to consider that when English is used by, and you see this, this acronym, it's non-native English speakers. Okay, NNES, non-native English speakers, as a lingua franca and not a foreign language, these people own that lingua franca. Okay, if there are two people, I don't know, there's an Italian and a French, and they're speaking English as a lingua franca because the other one doesn't know Italian and the other one doesn't know French. These people are said to own the lingua franca that they are speaking. They're not speaking English. They're using English as a lingua franca. And so there's no sense to describe them as non-native speakers. They are speakers. Well, they're speaking it, at least. Because remember that a lingua franca has no native speakers. It's a lingua franca. And so all speakers are learning how to use it. Sorry for that. Trying to get rid of them. No. Okay. Whew. The idea of distinguishing between native speakers and non-native speakers means that this idea, the distinction between these two, okay, if somebody distinguishes between native speakers and non-native speakers, this means that there is an idea behind this. And it is that language proficiency depends on the order of acquisition. What does this mean? That according to these scholars that distinguish between native and non-native speakers, you can only be 100% proficient in the language that you were born with, or at least the language that you learned when you were a newborn, when you were a child. Okay? But more important than that, I would focus on this other point over here. This idea, native, non-native speakers, and that one can be 100% proficient only in their mother tongue, does not recognize that the whole outer circle, and someday in some cases also the expanding circle, use English at home or in official institutional situations. So it doesn't make sense. Moreover, this idea promotes the fact that English should always be the reference point. English that is spoken by Anglophone speakers, by ethnic Anglophone speakers, the inner circle. We can get rid of this and do it later. So after all, this distinction between native and non-native speakers causes negative perceptions. And so not I, but Jenkins, when you see I, it's not my opinion, but I'm talking about Jenkins. Jenkins prefers to give another definition, okay, using different terms. In her opinion, it's more appropriate to talk about monolingual English speakers for speakers who speak only English and no other language. Okay, and she calls them MES. Then bilingual English speakers, BES, are speakers who are proficient in English and another language, and it doesn't matter whether English is their mother tongue or not. The order of acquisition does not matter. So if you are proficient in English and in another language, she defines you as a BES. And finally, there are non-bilingual English speakers, NBES, that are those who they have their own mother tongue, and also they speak English at a reasonable level. Okay, they're not perfect, but they speak it. In that case, she defines them as NBESs. The whole idea is, going towards English as a lingua franca that does not belong to a specific community, to a specific ethnic group. B.7, going towards new standard Englishes. And we're going back to Asia, and we're going to talk about Asian Englishes. So there are these scholars that are called scholars in the inner circle that talk about second language acquisition, SLA. And when they study Asian Englishes, so Englishes that belong to the second circle, they call these nativized or indigenized varieties of English as interlanguages. In linguistics, the word interlanguage means error. So according to these scholars, to some scholars that work in the inner circle, the languages, the Englishes that are used in the second circle, the outer circle, sorry, that they call IVE, so indigenized varieties of English, are errors. They're not L2 varieties. Why do they define them as such? Well, according to these scholars, the goal of second language acquisition, so learning a second language, should be to sound like a native, to have the same competence, or at least not the same, to have a native-like competence. Why do they say this? They say, well, these people in the second circle, in the outer circle, have enough input from native speakers. So they should be able to get to an acquisition that is 99% similar to that of a native speaker. Plus, these scholars don't look at the functions, the different functions that English is used for in the outer circle. Plus, the L1, the mother tongue language of these people who are learning English, only matters when it's interfering with the L2 structures, meaning an L1 language can influence, of course, it can influence your learning journey, but it's defined as interfering. And above all, the idea that is behind second language acquisition, so learning English, is integration. So basically, according to the scholars, you would learn English only because you want to become part of that culture. Okay? But what happens with these indigenous varieties of English? Okay? What happens in the outer circle, if not also in the expanding circle? The thing is that these people do not want to speak with other native speakers. They're not learning English just because they want to go to London and or to the United States and have lots of American or British friends. They communicate with people who are not native speakers. Plus, they are not learning English directly from native speakers. The input, so whatever they are learning, the people who are teaching them English, comes from a person that belongs to their group, to the indigenous varieties of English. And when they're using English, they're not using it just with people from the inner circle. They're using it in a multilingual setting. And this inevitably, the mother tongues, the mother tongue languages, and so they're the L1s, influence the way they speak English. Not interfere, but influence. Plus, and above all, motivation of using English is instrumental, and it's not for integration. What does this mean? That they speak English because they have to speak with somebody who doesn't understand their local variety, their local dialect. So they don't want to become part of the inner circle. Okay, so let me go back here for a second. So there are some scholars who have studied Asian Englishes, okay, or indigenized varieties of English in general. And they see these languages, these Englishes, as interlanguages, so mistakes, errors, and not L2 varieties. Because they think that these people, that the idea of a second language acquisition is to sound native-like, that they are perfectly able to get a full active competence that is like the L1 English. That, what else? That the motivation is to become part of a community that speaks English as the mother tongue language. But this is not the case of indigenous varieties of English, because they have nothing, they don't want to deal with the inner circle, okay? It's a language that they use on their own. So this idea of interlanguage does not work with English as a lingua franca or with Englishes that are used in the second circle, in the outer circle. Okay, but still, these scholars consider them as fossilized L1 competences. And this raises two questions. Okay, so what about American English? Is that an interlanguage? Are these people still trying to learn British English? Plus, number two, several Asian outer circle countries are being recognized as fully fledged language varieties, meaning that they are varieties of English. So all these communities, especially for the Asian English communities, are pulled inwards. There are some forces that pull them inwards, meaning that they want an English that can satisfy local needs. But at the same time, there's also another force that is pushing them outwards, meaning forces that make them feel like they should go towards international intelligibility. What does this mean? That these people probably want to use English, want that their own variety of English is respected, wants their variety of English to be respected, of course. But at the same time, they have difficulties because they are not 100% understood by people who belong to the inner circle or the expanding circle. It works, but it works locally. The underlying idea with Asian Englishes, and with other varieties of English, of course, is that all these speakers are multilingual, and they use code switching and code mixing a lot. Code switching, long stretch of words, you go from one language to another. Code mixing, you jumble it all together, basically. This makes it difficult for people who do not belong to that local variety of English to understand them. Okay? Let me give you some examples from Asian Englishes. Love to all, I had better sleep and rest my legs, as I am the only young Buddhi here. Or my legs will jawab denje. Sorry for the pronunciation, that is of course not that. So what's going on here? There's some code mixing, and there are the Hindi elements, Buddhi and jawab denje, that mean old woman and to give up. So somebody who does not belong to that community will not understand this. So there have been some attempts to try to codify this grammar and the grammar of these Asian Englishes. And so there's the Macquarie Regional Asian English Dictionary. Okay. And it documents the Englishes of Southeast and South Asia. So that could help people. But let's look at a couple of exercises that your book proposes. If you're not, wait a second. If you're not familiar with the Englishes of Southeast Asia, can you understand any of these terms? Academician, actsi, adobo, agrupation, and aircon. Let's look at the key, but I guess you don't even need it. So the first one, academician, is clearly the noun for academic. No problems with that. Actsi, a little more difficult, but still understandable maybe, is an adjective, and it means conceited, proud. So act plus the suffix si. Adobo is something more local. It's a noun, and it's a Philippine dish of pork or chicken stew, cooked in soy sauce, vinegar, and garlic. Agrupation is the noun for group, especially for political party. And it comes from the Spanish agrupación. And finally, aircon, this was more understandable, is a noun, and it stands for air conditioning, or the adjective air conditioned. So this shows you that some terms are local, okay? And it shows you that difficulty that these languages, these varieties of English are encountering with wanting to express themselves at a local level and so defend their identity. And at the same time, this clashes with wanting to expand outwards. Okay, so let's go to the last part for today, sorry. And we'll look at the possible future scenarios. This part is going to be about convergence or divergence. Are different varieties of English are the different varieties of English going to become more similar, or are they going to diverge even more from the inner circle? We have to consider what is going on from a linguistic point of view nowadays, okay, with globalization. And there are several factors, several things that we should consider. One is what is going on in the creation of combinations between English from the inner circle and local varieties. This, in the last 20 and even more years, has given origin to several languages that add the suffix ish in them, like Singlish, or Taglish, or Chinglish, okay, where the code mixing is so strong that they have created a variety of their own. Can you define them English? No. Can you define them local variety? No. It's something new, okay? And that might give birth to divergence, of course, from the inner circle. And what happens in that situation of all children that are born to parents who use English as a foreign language to communicate, as their own English as a lingua franca? I don't know. You have an Italian man and a Polish woman, okay, from two different linguistic families. They give birth to a child. And when the two people met, they only spoke English as their sort of lingua franca. For several reasons, I don't know. That child is the creation of a new linguistic phenomenon. Okay, and so parents have to deal with that and see what happens from a linguistic point of view. Plus, more and more non-native English, more and more non-native Englishes are being learned as a mother tongue. And so this will certainly give birth to further kinds of non-standard English. So Crystal proposes another definition, or at least another description for what is going on, that is world standard spoken English that is used in international situations. What does this mean? According to David Crystal, talking about divergence and convergence, Crystal says that local varieties of English are becoming divergent, meaning they're becoming more and more different from the inner circle. But internationally used Englishes are converging towards becoming ever more similar to American English. So local varieties are divergent. Internationally used English, convergent. Trudgell adds more to that. And he says that at an international level, words will converge, pronunciation will diverge, of course, and they don't know what is going on with the grammatical situation yet. For instance, at an international level, there's convergence on one phenomenon. The substitution of the sounds th, as in think, and the, as in, well, that's not the IPA. There's a well, not a mistake there, but it's just that I couldn't copy them. The IPA sound. The sounds the, and the are ever more becoming all f and v. So at an international level, think is pronounced like think, and brother as brother. Brother. Ah, okay, sorry, it's a B. Brother. But this is happening more in New Zealand and not in American English, so they're still studying it. Something else that is going on. English in New Zealand, England and New Zealand are becoming non-rhotic. Wait a second, let me... Okay, so basically there are some changes also within the inner circle. That some areas that were non-rhotic, meaning that they don't pronounce the R, are becoming rhotic, or vice versa. Areas that are rhotic, that were rhotic, are now becoming non-rhotic. So as you can see, the more people get into contact with each other, the more language evolves. And so there's no such a thing. We can, while local varieties of English are becoming divergent, they're becoming different from the inner circle, the language that is used as a lingua franca, or that David Crystal defines as world standard spoken English, are becoming more similar. Okay, so I'll end here. I'll stop here because this is the end of section 2. And from our next class, we're going to start with lesson 3. I will post that video about the exams as soon as possible so that you know what to do. And now let's go to today's song. We'll listen to Creep, Radiohead. And I'll read the lyrics. When you were here before, couldn't look you in the eye. You're just like an angel, your skin makes me cry. You float like a feather in a beautiful world. I wish I was special, so, you're so fucking special. But I'm a creep, I'm a weirdo. What the hell am I doing here? I don't belong here. I don't care if it hurts, I want to have control. I want to have a perfect body, I want to have a perfect soul. I want you to notice when I'm not around. You're so fucking special, I wish I was special. And it repeats. She's running out the door. She's running out. She run. Whatever makes you happy, whatever you want. You're so fucking special. I wish I was special. And then it repeats. So the link's here. And okay, so you see that I jumped lots of, I skipped some parts of it, so just follow the slides, okay, because I cut off all the things that I didn't want you to study. Okay, so take care, stay safe, and if you have any questions, just drop me an email. Thank you very much for watching, and see you tomorrow. Bye.